Welcome to Working in Teams, Forming and Developing a Team for HIT. This is Lecture A. The objectives for forming and developing a team for HIT are to describe stages of team development, identify the needs of the team at each described stage, establish and clarify common goals and purpose for a team, identify key characteristics of effective team members, identify key factors to maintain HIT teams. This section will focus on describing the stages of team development. Katzenbach and Smith, in their book The Wisdom of Teams, highlight components important in building effective teams. These components include meaningful performance challenges, or, in other words, the challenge that the team is facing has to be relevant and important to team members. It is difficult to energize a team to undertake a project that no one really cares about. Meaningful projects engender commitment and passion and contribute to higher performance. Organizations are challenged to assure that the environment and the culture actually energize a team, no matter where they are in the organizational hierarchy. An experienced and wise leader finds ways to actually catalyze team performance by focusing on the construction of a strong work ethic amongst individuals who cooperate, instead of simply focusing on the team as a single entity. In reality, team performance is often enhanced when individual strengths of members are utilized to increase the output of the entire team. This could be likened to the old adage that the incoming tide raises all boats. Team performance is increased when constant discipline, both within the team and across the organization, is in place. In this sense of the word, discipline can take on many forms. It can shape a common purpose, engender agreement on performance goals, help to define a common approach, encourage the development of high-level and complementary skills within the team, and facilitates individual accountability for team performance. A slogan that comes to mind that sums this up is, "An army of one." Just like a deployed platoon, a team is considered the basic unit of all operations, all for one and one for all. Katzenbach and Smith assert that team dynamics often support learning and behavioral change, and that many times changes that occur in this fashion are longer lasting and more acceptable. How are these components evidenced in health IT teams? Let's consider the creation of a team that is charged with focusing upon the persistent challenge of suboptimal communication at shift change. We know from the research that effective communication across team members is a key component of safer and higher quality care, and the incidence of poor communication of patient details as one team of caregivers leaves the bedside and another arrives is a major source of medical error. The team that is assembled by the organization would include people who are right at the front line of the problem, since these are the folks who have seen the aftermath of dropped or poor communication at shift change. As Katzenbach and Smith point out, this team has been called together to address a performance challenge that is meaningful and important to them, both professionally and personally. Working together as a unit, yet acknowledging and appreciating individual strengths, a team of this nature faced with this challenge would include not only care providers, but system folks, possibly a human factors engineer, and possibly patient and family representatives. Why such diversity? Well, recall that we talked about the importance of individual contributions and perspectives. Therefore, a patient and his family might be included if the failure in communication is occurring at time of discharge. The providers are included because much of the communication occurs between these individuals. The human factors engineer would contribute expertise on how best to design the IT solution so that it is highly usable by a variety of user types, and the systems person would be there to contribute perspectives related to capacity and capability of any system solution. As mentioned by Katzenbach and Smith, such teams can then learn from one another what is possible, what works, and what doesn't. And along the way, these team members are learning about other team member functions and contributions. Again, the team becomes an army of one that is working to accomplish something by contributing their wisdom to achieving a common goal. And now we move into looking more specifically at the 5 stages of team development. In 1965, Bruce W. Tuckman's important model of the team development process began to help teams understand and analyze the 5 stages of successful group evolution. As defined by Tuckman, these stages are forming, storming, norming, performing, and adjourning. Note that teams do not necessarily progress through these stages sequentially. Some teams may pause indefinitely at one stage of development, unable to advance or even return to an earlier stage. Teams often cycle through stages before they are able to perform well. It is also important to note that conflict is natural and normal and is part of the formation process. Let's move through these stages of team development. The first stage, forming, is a period of time where the team comes together for the first time. Team members may seem shy, eager to please, and excited about the group's work. However, a need to belong may inhibit them from voicing any disagreements. The challenge in the forming stage is in establishing the goals or the purpose and managing the various members. This is the time during which the leaders and the participants are sizing one another up and learning to work together. It is a time for team members to review the group's mission and goals, develop relationships, and establish early lines of communication and work processes. The slide presents several dimensions of the forming stage, and most of us can identify with some of these aspects. How much time is this going to add to my already busy day? Can I really make a difference? How can I help? Are you really committed to this? Or is this going to fall to just 1 or 2 people while the others sit around and read their email on their smartphones? In regards to HIT teams during the formation process, oftentimes members are chosen because of their can-do attitudes and their relative comfort with computing technology. Many times you will find that the super users are those who get tapped for joining the Health IT teams. There is often one person who ends up being chosen for teams of this type. This is not to say that you will not come across teams that just don't make it, or that limp along to the finish line. Actually, this is a strategy that some use in team formation. Pick a few of the hard-to-be-convinced, and, if you recall from prior slides, all ships may rise with the tide. In the second stage, a difficult one called storming, team members become comfortable disagreeing openly with each other. Conflicts may arise as members continue to learn how to work together to accomplish the group goals. Members may challenge the team hierarchy and goals, develop cliques, or question work processes. Unresolved and ongoing conflicts can doom a team at this stage. In the Health IT example from the last slide, teams that are formed to solve a complex interdisciplinary problem that involves many stakeholders can become fractious. Challenges to traditional communication patterns, such as a nursing aide disagreeing with a surgeon, arise in this stage, and it takes a strong team to accept the tenets of allowing everyone to speak and respecting others' opinions. In HIT teams, this is even further complicated because automation, in and of itself, inherently brings along challenges in processes and changes in communication. So not only is there a storm raging around the team, but there is a storm often raging within an individual. What will this new system mean for my job? How can I possibly learn one more thing? How am I going to convince others to come along? During the third stage, norming, groups begin to gel around a team identity. Rough patches smooth out as members grow to understand relationships, goals, and work processes, as well as learn how individuals work best together and how the group works best as a whole. The team culture is growing and the self-governance is increasing. Decisions are made within the group about ways to resolve differences and mediate conflict. Roles and responsibilities are delineated, and performance expectations and rules are redefined. Carrying forth our Health IT example, a good team will come to terms with their differences, and as they norm, attitudes may moderate a bit. The one team member who was vehemently opposed to allowing a patient to access certain parts of his medical record via a patient portal may be convinced by others of the good that can result. Another member who was convinced that automating everything was a good idea may be influenced by the rest of the team who continually and respectfully offer counterpoints. The norming phase is one where the waters calm and the team begins to perform and move ahead. As the group reaches the performing stage, relationships, goals, and activities become very clear. Members manage conflict respectfully and adapt roles to accomplish work effectively. The group is highly productive, balanced, and flexible to change. The team at this point is striving for improvement, evaluating their performance while asking themselves, is there a better way to do this? Is there something we have not thought of? How can we improve this or do it better, faster, cheaper? The team begins to align and identify itself as a team, and they take pride in accomplishment. Loyalty, trust, and commitment are increasing. The team assembled to tackle something often referred to as a BHAG, big, hairy, audacious goal, is performing well. They are able to ideally look at the issues across the enterprise, resolve them with little conflict, and reach a mutual decision that is best for all of the stakeholders. After experiencing a successful performing stage, a team undergoes a process of self-evaluation and change. At this point, 3 options are available to the team. 1. Adapt to evolving membership, leaders, and goals by returning to the forming stage. 2. Devolve to an ineffectual dorming stage as members grow complacent. Or 3. Disband the team, since its goals have been achieved. In healthcare situations, time is at an absolute premium. Therefore, teams that were formed and have performed are often disbanded or put into mothballs for a while. Often it is a challenge to make the decision that the team is slipping into dormancy, but it is important to make that decision to prevent the waste of time and resources. Meeting for meeting's sake is a lose-lose proposition. In our example of the Health IT team, if the goal has been met, people go back to their normal jobs until the situation arises when the team must be reconstituted. At that time, the cycle often begins again as new challenges are addressed and new team members are added. Forming begins anew, and the process is repeated. Alternatively, a team may devolve into the dorming stage, which we will discuss on the next slide in a little more detail. But before we move on, an important note: there is no guarantee that a high-performing team will stay as a high-performing team after being reconstituted. New goals and new teams can result in varying levels of performance and achievement. Therefore, reconstituting a team still requires careful consideration. Let's return to the concept of dorming. Since Tuckman's work was published, writers have identified a phantom stage, which has become known as the dorming phase. During the dorming stage, the team becomes complacent, passive, and disengaged from the work. An indicator of dorming might be noticeable during team meetings held during the lunch hour. Team members who earlier were enthusiastic about the project and the team effort are now content to simply enjoy their lunch and socialize, even though important work still remains to be done. Cognizant and wise leaders will spot this type of reaction and work to reinvigorate or reconstitute a team to get it back on track. The 5th stage, adjourning, most often occurs after a project team achieves its goals successfully, but it can also happen after a sale, merger, or restructuring effort have forced a team to reconsider its goals and organization. Adjourning requires dissolving the team, wrapping up final plans, and resigning roles. If the team is not prepared to end, the members can find this stage painful, especially if they had a very successful team experience. It is difficult, to say the least, for folks to let others go when they have reached a point in a project where it is successful and they receive the recognition that is so justly deserved in order to bring something to light, such as a system or application. In Health IT, it is said that the job is never really done, so while one team may disband or one goal might be met, rest assured that there will be a continual norming, storming, and forming waiting in the wings. Now that you have had a chance to identify with some of the stages of development, we would like you to experience a personal exercise. First, provide an example from your experience in teams at each stage of the cycle. You can choose different teams for different stages, or stay within the same team for all 5 stages. Then describe why you believe each stage was a valuable part of the team's development, or perhaps why it wasn't a valuable part of the team's development. This concludes Lecture A of Working in Teams, Forming and Developing a Team for HIT. In summary, we focused primarily upon the first objective, which was to describe the distinct stages of team development. Before we launched into these stages, we covered the components that Katzenbach and Smith put forth in their book, The Wisdom of Teams. Think back. Do you remember how the statement, "the rising tide raises all boats," relates to a strong team? How does a team resemble an army of one? Recall the characteristics that a well-performing team shares: a passion for the project, discipline, respect, strong work ethic, and so on. Tuckman's team development stages of forming, storming, norming, performing, dorming, the phantom stage, and adjourning were all discussed. While almost all teams progress through these same stages, we talked about the challenge, the questions, and the team dynamics that are characteristic of each stage.